The Hero's Journey, a Mindful Accord podcast, with your host, Rich Decker.
Hello, and thank you for taking some of your valuable time to listen to the show. My guest today is Shawn Bradford. Shawn is the founder of Breathe and Work. In Act 1 of her journey, Shawn spent 15 highly successful years working in a fast-paced business-to-business sales career. And there was one constant that Shawn witnessed, and that was an absolute need for stress reduction tools and employee wellness programs. And she knew she needed a big dose of stress management for herself as well, but she didn't know where to start. Then a close family friend told Shawn she was the most tightly wound person she had ever met. She knew it was time to make some major lifestyle changes. After years of experiencing the vast benefits of yoga and meditation, she obtained her 200-hour yoga teacher training certificate and her transformational life coaching certificate so that she could bring these healing tools that transformed her life to individuals and businesses in her community. Shawn loves empowering her clients to be more mindful through her engaging workshops, keynotes, and yoga and meditation classes, which promote clarity, focus, and wellness to increase joy and life-work satisfaction. I met Shawn a few years ago, and although I have learned many things from her, the most important skill she has taught me is to value time. To value time in a calm and compassionate way. And I must apologize to Shawn. When I recorded this, there was a challenge with the audio that I didn't catch until later. But the content of this episode is so awesome that I decided to just go ahead and release it anyway. And I want to thank Brandon Weinberger, who is the editor and audio specialist for our show. He was able to take something that was unlistenable and turn it into listenable. And you can find Brandon on Upwork.com, and there'll be a link in the show notes that will take you directly to his profile. I'm proud to present The Hero's Journey of Shawn Bradford. Enjoy.
Thank you, Shawn. Thank you for joining us on the Hero's Journey podcast. I'm very excited for everyone to hear your hero's journey. And we'll begin with the question I ask everybody who comes on our show is, tell me about your childhood. Where'd you grow up? And what principles, for better or worse, did your parents instill in you? And what principles, for better or worse, are you still carrying with you today?
Thank you, Rich. I'm really happy to be here. I appreciate the invitation. I grew up in Naperville, Illinois, which at that time was voted the safest place to raise your children. And it was wonderful. We spent most of our time, especially in the summers, outdoors until literally the sun went down. We would be playing in the streets, riding our bikes, playing yard games. There were no fences, like kick the can. And so one of the things that I remember most is really getting to know the neighborhood families, the kids, and every summer just playing until it became dark. So those are my favorite childhood memories. My mother was a first grade teacher for about 30 years, and she is the epitome of a first grade teacher. She's warm, loving, supportive, and she was at every single sporting event that I did, and I did tons of activities. My dad ran businesses, mostly copier companies, and he dealt with some stuff, and there was a lot of yelling, a lot of fighting. So as I was able to get jobs at about 12 years old babysitting, I tried to stay out of the house as much as possible, just to be away from that fighting and tense household. And so starting from a pretty young age, I worked a lot and spent a lot of time at friends' houses. However, it was fun because I developed some really, really wonderful friendships that I still have to this day. I developed friends with, my friends' family, went on trips with them, and I'm really grateful for that. Did that answer your question, or do you want me to talk about traits as well that I've carried through?
So with these principles, the main principles that you recall learning, what are you still carrying with you today, for better or worse?
I think one that I'm still carrying is from my mom, and bless her heart, she did so many things. She was always on the go. I never saw that woman sit still. So I've always equated being valuable and being productive with being busy. because that's what I saw. And I love my mom. She's just such a warm, amazing woman. However, that's one of the traits I've carried for 40 years. So I'm trying to shed that, where my value isn't based on always being so darn busy.
I see. I know a lot of people in our generation, I guess you and I are in the same generation. I'm a little older than you, but I noticed that a lot of our generation have become helicopter parents. So you talked about when you were a kid and you're out there playing around and not really having any type of supervision, and your parents are letting you do what you want. Well, that seems to have gone away. What are your thoughts on that? And what have you carried on to your children from your childhood?
One thing that I've carried on to my children is to be really active with sports and with different projects. So my kids are involved in a lot of sports. We're at the YMCA often, and they love it. What's different, though, is I grew up in the suburbs. We live in the city. So my kids literally cannot go out and ride their bike in the street because there's too much traffic. Where I grew up in, we might have seen one car every hour that drove down our street, and it would be a neighbor. Nobody would come down that street. So it's different. And even other things, like my daughter, she wanted to sleep over this weekend, and I was definitely very hesitant, and I probably had 100 sleepovers by the time I was her age. So I think things are different, but I still want my kids to have that community. So I let them, but it's not super easy. I understand what you're saying. I want to keep kind of a firm hold on my kids to just know where they're at, know that they're safe, but it is letting them go and letting them have those fun experiences so they too can develop that community that I had as a kid that I loved.
Oh, you have 3 kids.
I have 3 kids.
And what are their ages?
My girls are 8 and 9, and my boy is 6.
6. It seems like everybody's afraid of something now, whereas when we were kids, I guess maybe my mother was concerned, but I ran around all the time. And do you think things have gotten worse or more dangerous, or just perception has changed? It
might be perception. It might be our availability to see everything that's going on in the world within a few minutes with technology. So we might just know more. Also, our kids know more, and I think it's to do with technology. And I battle this all the time. How much time do I let my kids on their tablet or the TV? And it's this constant strain and pull of letting them have a little downtime with what they request, which is a tablet or TV, but then also making sure they do, get with friends and go to their sports and run around and play. Because goodness, as kids, I don't ever remember even having the TV on once in the summertime. So I think That's the difference, is screen time and tablets. But
what was the most sophisticated technology you had as a kid growing up?
We had, for a short time, I got hooked on the Nintendo.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever that was. But I played it a little bit, but nothing like what I see nowadays. But that was it. And we had one of those, oh my goodness, my dad had one of those video recorders that he had to carry the whole thing around. So he had this big thing that he'd carry around, which was the actual where you put the cassette in. And it was crazy. He'd take it up the ski mountain when we were kids and, film our skiing, but it had to weigh 50 pounds. So it was this monstrous.
Was it film? Or was it digital?
It was VHS.
Oh, okay.
It was VHS, but he had to carry the whole, the VHS player with in order for the recorder that he had to record. So it was crazy. I'm
right.
Picturing it literally up the ski mountain.
Wow. All right, well, let's get back to your hero's journey. When you were a teenager, given everything you experienced, what did you envision for yourself? What did you see Shawn's future being as a teenager? Some of us want to, this is the stereotypical, be a policeman or a librarian or a rock star or whatever. What did you see for Shawn?
I remember one thing that stood out to me was I was in my sociology class and we took a survey. And I went to a predominantly white school, pretty much, maybe 95%. And in this survey, it asked questions such as, would you be friends with somebody of a different ethnicity? Would you date somebody of a different ethnicity? Would you marry somebody? And then the teacher read the results out loud, but obviously students weren't named. It was just saying, 1 out of 25 said this. Well, I was the only one that said I would marry outside of my ethnicity. And I was maybe 1 of 2 that said I would date. So I obviously knew it was me. So I was like, wow. So what I took away from that was I just really wanted to get out and explore. I wanted to see what else there was besides my quote unquote safe town. that's what I really took away. I really got into studying world religion. I took several courses. I loved my sociology, psychology classes. I took a lot of those, anthropology, and I just wanted to explore. I wanted to see what was out there. So it was general, just explore.
So what did you want to be when you grew up?
I really wasn't sure. I went to school to be a teacher because my mom was a teacher. My first job ever was selling copiers because my dad sold copiers. So I didn't know. I was kind of standing in the shadow of their identities because I didn't know. And the things that I was into at the time, I remember I had a deck of tarot cards. I studied Nostradamus, who was this, century old, maybe more, could predict the future. And I was obsessed with him. And I was really kind of obsessed with learning about religion and mythicism. And I just wanted to explore. I wanted to explore what else there was. I loved astrology. And so I didn't really know what I wanted to be.
So were you raised in a religious background?
I was not.
No.
No.
So your parents weren't afraid of you getting possessed by the devil
No.
or something?
I was not. No. My mom went to church here and there. My dad grew up in Catholic boarding school, but he didn't identify, so we didn't go to church. Maybe holidays with some family and friends here and there, but religion still fascinated me, and I went to different churches to explore what was out there.
Now, where do you think that came from if you had no religious upbringing?
It's interesting. I think those things when you're younger and you do explore, because my parents did give me a lot of freedom to explore. And I think you just get curious. And I think there's this voice within that wants to know more and understand, where do we come from, who we are. And I was just so curious. I think it came from a child's curiosity.
That's interesting. So you had this spirituality that you were exploring, but you were on a pretty typical path, right? You went to college. Where'd you go to school at?
Northern Illinois University. So yes, I was. The spirituality did really interest me, but I was on a very typical path. Went to high school. Right from there, went to college. And the first college I went to was literally in the country. And I joined a sorority. Couldn't stand it because it really goes against my grain being told what to do. And that was my singular experience in the sorority. Some may be different. And so I only lasted a semester at that school and at that sorority. Came back home, commuted to community college for 2 years, and then went to Northern Illinois University where there was a bit more just openness, diversity. It was only an hour from the city of Chicago. So I could still get kind of, to explore the city, which I was having fun doing. I grew up in the suburbs. So I was having a fun time exploring Chicago at that time.
Oh, that was like going to Mars, probably.
Truly, yes.
Yeah. So you went to school. You were studying to be a teacher, yes?
Correct.
And then you graduated. You got your degree in
elementary education.
Oh.
Yeah, it's with a minor in Spanish.
So did you become a teacher?
I became a teacher for 4 months.
Oh, for 4 months.
I took over a teacher that had burst her appendix. I took over her class where I was student teaching. That was 4th grade, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But then from there, I moved out to Arizona, and I was studying. I was planning on becoming a teacher. I was faxing my resume places, and I was doing it from my uncle's office. I had only met a couple of times that my dad had sent me to. Go talk to my brother. He'll let you use his fax machine, basically, or his computers. And while I was there sending off my resume, he offered me a summer job cold calling to get leads for the copier people that worked for him. And I ended up loving it. It was just something completely different and new. And I stuck there for years.
So you abandoned teaching altogether. Now, what the interesting thing is, you're a teacher now, but a different teacher.
Exactly.
And we'll get to that.
Yes.
So you were on this path, and you said you were always busy, always doing things. Would you consider yourself a type A person?
Completely. I was moving constantly. I was writing something the other day. This memory is like vivid in my mind. I feel like I got a little off track from my purpose, my meaning when I was in my 20s. I remember I lived by myself and remember taking a bath one night and being panicky because I had no plans for the evening. And the thought of spending any time by myself literally drove me into a panic where I couldn't even phantom the idea of spending 5 minutes in silence or stillness or by myself. And I remember when one particular friend, and these were just drinking friends, there wasn't any depth or meaning, but I really spent my 20s just a lot of drinking. And I remember getting a text with a place to meet them, and I was so relieved that I was saved from having to basically be in this big house by myself for the evening. Like, the thought terrified me. So yeah, I was always doing, but really I think to kind of avoid getting to know myself, spending time with myself, I was always in motion, either working or going out with my friends.
Now, did you ever examine that behavior? Why? Or you just lived it?
I at that time, I did not. I didn't even think about it. I was very unaware. I just thought I need to be either selling, making money, because I was in sales, or spending the money. Those were my two, truly, those were my two means. And
main
I was always
occupations,
doing.
two main things you did,
Yeah.
making money or selling money?
Yes, and to give myself a little credit during that time, I did do some good. I did have quite a few places I volunteered for and did do some good. I volunteered extensively for a dog rescue. I did Big Brothers Big Sisters for a good 15 years. So I did do, I've got to be a little kinder to my 20-year-old self. However, the theme here is I was really scared to spend any time alone with myself. I was always busy.
What were you afraid of?
Looking back, getting to know myself, but I didn't know that at the time. Getting to really meet head on those fears, those things that keep you up at night. Things where I wanted this portrayal of being perfect, being a great salesperson, having a fancy house, having a nice car. So I wanted this image. And beneath that was probably somebody that was, not probably, somebody that was insecure with I didn't even know myself. So just getting to know, the shadow side of me, right? We all have it, and it's nothing to fear. It's just getting in touch with, who are you deep inside? What are you interested in, even if it's different from what other people think. So for example, things I got interested in, the understanding different cultures, different religions, understanding spirituality, that light within me that I started to see in my teens. I really got away from that in my 20s. It got far away. I got a little off course.
So you were on this path and you got married, yes? Started a family.
I did. And I thought really, at the time I thought, I want some kids. This drinking's got to stop. This fast-paced life, let's have some kids. So,
right.
One of my other themes was I always wanted to be in control, right? Like, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to control all of it, because in my mind there was safety in that control, right? Predictability. And then one of my guy friends that I used to hang out with and go to bars and clubs with, I thought, let's get married, let's have some kids together, not having any clue that maybe we should talk about, shared values and really much deeper desires. We got married, and it was such a blessing because I have these children that just blow my mind that I was blessed with them. They're just these absolutely fabulous children, and they're just unique and they're different, and there's so much depth to all three of them. And the marriage didn't work out. We bickered a lot, and it's interesting. I think when you're not aware, you repeat what you grew up in. So I really created the exact same scenario that I grew up in, which is interesting because I think we find familiarity in something we surrounded ourselves with, whether it's right for us or not. Is that?
Sure. We run on this programming that was put into the supercomputer in our skull, and we just repeat that often. We do it all the time. I still do it, but I'm curious about when you hit bottom, and when did you realize that this life is not working? Because you were still busy trying to run a family.
I was so busy, and I was working so much. I went between selling copiers and selling real estate. And my saving grace was I hired this amazing lady, Karen, and she came in for 4 years, and she was our full-time nanny. But I also worked a lot, so it was kind of my escape from, again, getting to know myself, because you can't quite go at that same pace with kids. But I could if I had somebody else helping. And the marriage, there was so much bickering always, and it was both of us. We just bickered. That's the best way to describe it. And I remember after the 3 kids, I was so busy having the kids, I didn't notice. But once I had all 3 of them, I remember really just looking around and not even recognizing what I had created and recognizing myself. And it's like I had these 3 healthy, happy, beautiful children, and I couldn't find a lot of joy in it. I would truly look forward to that glass of wine at night, or maybe that one TV program at night, and everything else was just trying to get through the day. But I would look at that and go, how on earth can I not be enjoying this? Look what I have. And I wasn't enjoying it, and I couldn't explain it. I just knew something was wrong because I was not happy. If you're only looking forward to a glass of wine at the end of the day, or maybe some big vacation you have planned, I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't figure out what. And Karen at the time, who was watching my kids, she was completely new to my world that I had been living in my 20s. That was just this really intense, fast pace of just being busy and having so much stimulus. She literally would talk to my kids about stopping to look at the flowers, literally, and stopping to look at the sunset or the sunrise or the clouds. And I remember one time in particular, we were going to pick up Pita Jungle, and I was pulling my kids along, like, come on, let's go. And one of them literally stopped to, Mom, look at this beautiful purple flower. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, what are you doing? Looking at the flower. What? Like, we have food to pick up. Let's go. That was my mentality. Let's go. But I was also mesmerized at this new way of thinking that she actually was just stopping to enjoy something that was not part of my world. It was always moving on to the next moment, just rushing, hurrying. But it stuck with me, and I started to pay attention to what my kids were saying, to what Karen was saying. And Karen talked to me. She actually said to me, she sat me down. This was only about 6 months in of her working for us. She sat me down and she just said, Shawn, she's very outspoken, and I admire this so much about her. She said, I am so worried about you. I have never met anybody as high-strung as you. You need to make some changes for your health, your sanity, and your kids' sanity. Like, it's not working. And I'd only known this woman for 6 months, so I was totally offended. However, even when somebody says something that offends you, there's a part of it that absolutely rings true. And I knew she was right. I was trying to control so much to keep some sort of, I don't even know why. I mean, why does anybody try to control anything? Because you think you know what you're going to expect. You think there's some safety in the control. But there's not. And I know that now. But I was trying to control everything. But once you have kids, that literally is going to drive you crazy. And so I was running around like a crazy woman trying to control every aspect. I mean, what people said, what my kids said, what I said, what my spouse said. And finally I thought, wow, I'm looking at everybody but myself. I'm not trying to control anything that's going on inside. I'm only trying to control everything outside of me. I didn't have those words for it yet. She suggested I tried yoga. And I absolutely hated it. I admire people that say they love their first class. I hated it. When we were lying in that final resting pose, we call it Shavasana, my mind wasn't even running. I was angry at the instructor for having us lie still. Because truly, I was so resentful. And I was just thinking I could be doing dishes. I could be reading a book, but not to enjoy reading the book, but to get it out of the way, right? Like I was going through the motions of what I thought a good parent should do, but I wasn't enjoying it. And I was thinking of all the things that I could do just so I could get that wine to be, and then go to bed, right? But I still went back. Like it took me about 4 months. But Karen kept softly pushing it. I shouldn't say softly, putting the little bug in my ear. Why don't you try another class? So then I started going to Mountainside because I could check the kids in, and they really liked it there. And I could do my classes. And after probably about a couple of months of that, I actually started to look forward to it. And then I started to like these yoga classes. And maybe after a year, I was consistent 5, 6, 7 times a week. And then it got a hold of me where I started to enjoy that resting pose. I was like, oh. Slowly, I started to be able to sit with myself for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, where before it was truly torture. Like it just, the thoughts in my head weren't kind. It was torture, but it started to be less so. I started to actually look forward to it and enjoy it. And about 2 years later, I started seeking other kind of classes, slower classes, restorative classes, meditation classes. And I do have to say, my first meditation ever, I did love it. That I thought, this is it. This is what I've been looking for.
So Karen was your mentor? Did you say that?
I would say Karen was my everything. So Karen was my children's nanny for 4 years, but she's probably one of my best friends now. She's my mentor, my teacher. I just call her my angel.
So without her, you think you probably would have continued on that path? As you describe yourself, you must have been miserable. Is that accurate?
I was miserable. I was just rushing to the next moment, and I was going through the motions of being what I thought a good parent should be, of working hard, but I just wasn't enjoying any of it. So yeah, I was pretty darn miserable when you're not enjoying any part of your life.
Right.
I think Karen was, I don't think that almost choked me up to think she wouldn't have, because I think that was so divinely timed that she came into my life. I don't think there would have not been a Karen. The way it came together, it was so easy. I put one message on Facebook: I'm looking for a nanny. I was doing real estate at the time. A client said, oh, my sister has this amazing woman. She just finished 10 years with a family. She needs a new home. Done. That was it. It was easy. And to me now, when things flow easily like that, they're very divinely timed. They're meant to be. They're part of your path.
What's your relationship now with Karen?
She is one of my closest friends. We see each other often. So it's moved to a friendship.
What's the mentor relationship now? Is she still mentoring you?
I would say it's really moved to a mutually supportive friendship, and I think she would agree with that statement. And she's definitely still, we share space back and forth, we share stories back and forth, and I think it's definitely mutually supportive, but I will always consider her an angel in my life.
So looking back now, what would you say to your younger self? Not that your younger self would have listened. What would you say to yourself now?
That's a great question. I would tell my younger self, because I can see there are so many opportunities, to stop trying to find myself in really all the men that I was dating. I was in these whirlwind romances trying to find some peace of mind, happiness in other people, constantly in work and other people. And I would have told my younger self to just look inward. And it sounds almost cliche, but it's what I needed, because I was trying to find it everywhere else. I was always trying to either fix or control other people, especially relationships that I had, so I didn't have to look at myself.
Do you have any idea why you were so afraid of yourself? Where did the fear arise from, the suffering? Where did it arise from, in your mind?
This isn't throwing anything back on parents or the dad, because I think we can get stuck there and we don't take care of our own suffering. And this is from one of my favorite spiritual teachers, Carolyn Mace. I went to one of her workshops, and it was such a big takeaway for me. She said, everybody has a right to deal with their own suffering and not pass it on to others. My dad really had a lot of suffering and a lot of pain, and a very difficult childhood. As a kid, you want your parents to be happy. And I never saw that in him. And I think as kids, you take that on yourself, right? You think, maybe if I would have done this, my parent would have been happy. Maybe if I had done this, my parent wouldn't have been in pain. So I think instead of really looking at myself and giving myself a break, and it didn't have anything to do with me, it was my dad's pain and suffering, but I wanted to absorb that for him. And I feel like I absorbed a lot of it. And I never wanted to look at that because it was painful, right? Because it's hard to look at yourself if there's pain there. It's almost like you're reliving it. And there were some time, after I started looking at myself, there were a lot of tears, there were breakdowns, there was feeling of shame and feeling of guilt and really disgust of just, things you've done that you're not really proud of. But you have to look at those, and you have to find a place of forgiveness and kindness with yourself so you can move past and not get stuck there.
Is your father happy now? Do you ever find happiness at all? Even contentment?
As he ages, I think it's coming naturally, but there's still just a lot of pain and suffering there.
Why do you think he never hit a bottom to where he could change?
And that's one of my lessons. I don't know. And I stopped looking at that because that just takes the work away from what I have to do on myself. It's not saying that we have to, of course, be there for the people that we love, but the best gift we can give other people is to heal ourselves. And I feel the best gift I can give to my kids is to be a whole, happy person so that I don't pass on to them things that I shouldn't be passing on to them, such as unhappiness or suffering, because kids will take that in.
But your mother, was she unhappy too? Or?
They're divorced now.
Oh, they're divorced.
They're divorced.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a very painful marriage for both of them. It was so much bickering and unkindness and lots of stuff there. And
how did you, I guess you did kind of pass that along because you and your husband were bickering all the time.
Yes. And I mean, I literally repeated. I created the exact same scenario because I wasn't aware. And truly, it's interesting looking back because it's like, wow, I literally created exactly what I grew up in, even though I ran away from that when I grew up. But because I wasn't aware, I wasn't looking at myself, I ran away. Literally, I was always gone from my house. I recreated the same thing because I didn't have any awareness around it. Right? If I had looked at myself and had awareness, I probably wouldn't have recreated. However, everything happens as it should because I'm meant to have these 3 little souls that I get to, am fortunate enough to parent.
Yeah, so much of our life is lived on an unconscious level. It's really amazing. And to try and be aware is so difficult because our brain has very little interest in being in the moment. It's amazing that you even can find even momentary glimpses of that. And unfortunately, for most of us, that has to come through suffering until we realize that.
It does.
And then some, like maybe perhaps your father, there was never enough suffering to where he could change.
Yeah, I don't know. And maybe one day him and I will have that conversation, but we haven't yet.
I see. Well, so you were getting into yoga, you started doing the meditation, and then what changes did you notice in yourself? What was Shawn becoming?
One of the really pivotal times for me, and I totally remember this, was I was listening to a Deepak audio CD, Synchrodestiny, and I've listened to it many times since. And at the time, I had just started or was about to start my yoga teacher training. And it totally took me by surprise, but I was listening. I remember I was at home. It was early in the morning. The kids were off at school. And I was about to, get ready for the day. And as I was cleaning up the kitchen, I was listening to his audio CD. And all of a sudden he said, okay, stop. We're going to do a guided meditation. And I love when things take you off guard because you have no expectations. So I thought, okay, why not? So I sat down and I listened to his 20-minute guided meditation. And it was beautiful in that book. And since I'd probably listened to it 100 more times after that, that was my guided meditation till I was ready to meditate without the guide. And he would give maybe 3 minutes of talking and then let us sit with ourselves for maybe another 3 minutes. And he had different sections, gratitude, forgiveness, and it was so powerful. There was a section where he wanted us to play out a scenario of somebody we were at odds with, yet we changed perceptions. I was the other person, the other person was me, and in our heads we had this conversation, and it really opened up my mind to this new perception. And it went on like this for 20 minutes, just different little sections. Again, gratitude, breathing, awareness of surroundings. And when it was done, I felt like I had never felt before. And I'm lighter, different things that were weighing on me were very distant when I was done. And then I remember I walked outside to my backyard. And truly, everything, people will say this, and I understand why they say it, everything was more vibrant. Everything. The grass, the trees, the sounds. I felt like I was almost in a different world. Everything was just vibrant. And I haven't had this experience since, but I was just standing there, staring at the backyard like I'd never seen it before. And fluttered in my line of vision, a hummingbird. Hummingbird flies away. This is springtime, about to be spring. In flutters a butterfly. Butterfly flutters away. A few moments later, in flutters a dragonfly. Dragonfly flutters away. Now, those are 3 beautiful animals that I love to see, and I'll stop somebody in mid-conversation and say, hummingbird, hummingbird. And so to me, it was a sign that I needed to say, this, you need to keep doing this. This is pivotal for you. You need to keep doing this. And that really started my meditation practice. And I can say with that meditation, I loved it from the first time. And it has opened up new ways for me to see myself, see the world. And it didn't happen overnight. This has been several years, but it's changed habits. It's created more awareness. I've always been, and this comes from trying to control. Once you get bigger in your life, you can't control anything. I mean, it's so silly to even think that I ever thought I could. And I'm still working on that. It's not like I fully release control, but I'm working on it. But the point I'm trying to make is meditations help with that. It has helped me go more with the flow and ease of life versus trying to control everything. And to me, that control is where all the pain and suffering is, versus going with the flow where there's a lot of just grace and joy in the moments of living. And so that's what meditation's given to me. And one of the things that's helped me both, I've always been very reactionary, because again, if you can't control, you're going to react. At least that's how I always have been. And again, I'm still working on it. I'm not perfect, and perfection's not what I'm striving for. I'm still a work in progress, but my reactions are different. I'm standing up for myself now instead of letting things fester, because I noticed that's where the reaction came from, letting things sit, not try to work through it, not try to feel the emotion. So now I see myself feeling the emotion, acknowledging it, responding to it. And if I'm angry, saying I'm angry. If something makes me sad, admitting to myself that makes me sad, and allowing the different emotions to be present without letting them consume me because I was ignoring them. So awareness, less reaction. And I can't even get started on sleep. When I first got divorced, I could not sleep. So that guided yoga nidra meditation gave me the grace of sleep. I could not sleep. So I mean, I can go on and on about all the things it's given me, but those are some of the main.
What do you attribute to? Just quieting your mind, or quieting your mind, your body?
So I've taken a couple of different courses. I took my yoga teacher training with Tara and Hamid, and that was my, another introduction to meditation. After that, I took a guided imagery meditation. And what was a meditation? Guided imagery for self-healing class. And that gave me further exploration into a lot of different meditations. I took a yoga nidra guided meditation class with Kamini, who's just a pioneer in yoga nidra, which just blew the top off everything for me. So I wouldn't say just quieting the mind. That I've learned so many techniques, and I'll use them based on what I need in that moment. So sometimes I'll focus on a body scan if I'm feeling like I'm really holding something on my shoulder and try to get clarity on what that message is. Sometimes I'll just focus on the breath. Sometimes I want a guided yoga nidra to just really calm me if my mind's going crazy. Sometimes I just want to sit in stillness and be aware of what's popping in my mind. Other times I just want to focus on the breath. Sometimes I get to a point of just quiet. I feel like these waves are coming over me. Sometimes that doesn't happen. So what I tell my students now when I'm teaching meditation is not to attach to any experience, and that's something I've had to embody, because we might have this cool experience in meditation where we do get some space between the thoughts, and we want that every time. But I've had to learn to just say whatever experience I have today is right. I just need to give myself the time to sit in some sort of meditation, guided, silence, body scan, sound, whatever it may be.
So whatever rings your bell at that time is what you do.
I like that, yes. Whatever rings my bell at that time.
So when did you quit selling real estate and copiers? What happened?
That was all, it hasn't been that long. It'll be 2 years in May for the copiers. So I stopped the real estate first, went back to copiers, and I loved it. I shouldn't say that, but see, that's like just a gut response. I liked aspects. My uncle trained me. I loved working with my family. My uncle is just a phenomenal man. And he gave me a lot of amazing business skills, which I'm forever grateful for. So I enjoyed working with him and my cousin. And I love the clients because I formed some relationships that I have developed into friendships. However, I was really compelled to start a wellness company that taught yoga, meditation, mindfulness, because it turned my life inside out. and upside down in the best possible way. And I wanted to share that with other people.
So you were a single mom of 3, yes?
I was.
At that time. Because most women would probably be fearful of making the change you made. How did you confront that fear? Or was it so compelling that you couldn't ignore it?
Well, to other people's credit that is listening to this, I did have some money saved up. I took a loan against my 401k, so I had a little money safety net there. I don't know if I would have been quite as fearless if I didn't have that chunk of money sitting there. So that was one thing that gave me a little safety net, because I was supporting, for the most part, 3 kids on my own. I mean, their father's a great father, so he was helping too. But, for the main expenses, I was responsible. And that can be scary, and I'm not going to take that away. We have responsibilities to our children to feed them and clothe them and get them to school. So that money sitting there gave me a safety net. I also teach yoga, and that's another safety net, because that's consistent money coming in each week. I also have a really supportive mom that helps me a lot. My sisters are here. They help. I've got amazing friends that will, go back and forth helping with the kids. So I really have a wonderful community.
So this is when you started Breath and Work?
Breathe and Work.
Breathe and
Work. Yes, this is when I started Breathe and Work. It'll be 2 years this May. And so I did start it with, yes, an absolute compelling passion and desire to continue to work on myself and to bring these different healing services to other people, because we all universally have these same needs and some of these same issues. I wanted to share the amazing benefits, really, of breath work and mindful movement and meditation with other people. So yes, it was this compelling drive. But again, just so other people know, I did have some savings there, and that gave me the security blanket for raising 3 kids.
But still, even though most people wouldn't do that, honestly, start their own business with 3 kids, single mom, even with money, people would be afraid.
I feel with a lot of my exploration, and I'll totally credit that to my parents. They really always let me explore what I wanted to explore. They let me be out of the house a lot. They did support that. And that exploration of, let's try this, let's do this. And
so it was more curiosity
I like that. Curiosity. What's going to happen if we try this?
So that was stronger than the fear?
Thank you. I love how you worded that, Rich. The curiosity was stronger than the fear. Absolutely. Fear was there, but the curiosity was stronger.
Yeah. So many of us, and I'm no different, but fear runs our lives in many ways. Mm-hmm. And we get pigeonholed into this idea of who we're supposed to be, or what you thought of you were supposed to be in your 20s. And some of us don't lose that. We keep carrying that on. And I think our potential is unlimited, really, honestly.
Yeah.
It wasn't too long ago that, we were living in caves, and look where we are now, talking on these devices that people will hear in other places. But getting back to your business, what was the mission of your business? What is the mission of your company?
Thank you for telling me I've been courageous, but I started in kind of a safe area. I spent my entire adult career in sales training. So I started doing a lot of sales training initially, and I really didn't want to do that, but I had the skills. It was something people were willing to pay for. And so I had a branch of my company called Breathe and Sell, where I would go do sales training, but still work in the breath work and visualization. But it was also a little bit safety. So I did get away from that last year and let that go so that I could really focus on the mindfulness and the meditation.
What's your purpose now? What's your mission?
My purpose is to help people manage any stressful situations, whether it's their own thoughts, which is a lot of it, which is so much of it, their own reactions, with techniques from yoga, from mindfulness, and from meditation, such as breathing, such as movement, such as awareness. I do really fun partner exercises and experiments, really to help people get in touch with their inner selves, because that's where all the solutions are. And if we get to know ourselves and we create awareness, we can really develop this beautiful relationship with ourselves that is going to create just so many beautiful solutions for ourselves. It's all about us and getting to know ourselves.
So let's play the devil's advocate. Someone might say, well, if all you do is focus on yourself, it's selfish. How would you respond to that?
I'm going to go right back to, again, one of my favorite spiritual teachers, Carolyn Mace, and repeat her quote that we all have a right to handle our own suffering and not pass it on to others. So I think the best gift that we can give to people around us is to work on ourselves, to find peace within ourselves, because then we can only give it to other people if we've already given it to ourselves.
That's a good answer. So who should contact you? Who are you looking for as far as clients? Is it individuals? Are you doing businesses, or what's your approach?
I do both. So I really do enjoy working in businesses because people spend a lot of time at work, and they'll gain skills that they can use anytime in the office, at home. But businesses, they've got to find another way, because insurance, anybody owning a business knows that insurance costs are out of control. They're absolutely out of control. They're out of control. Chronic disease costs the United States so much money, and stress is related to every single chronic disease. So if we can give people solutions to manage their stress, eventually we're going to start to be able to tackle this huge issue of healthcare. I mean, it's costing us so much money. So if we can start teaching people how to empower themselves to not only just go seek help once they have a problem, but to start to manage their own stress, to start to manage their own thinking, to start to manage their own well-being. And we can do that through a lot of mindfulness skills, through a lot of stress management skills, which I really think are a lot of mindfulness training skills, through meditation. People get in touch with their inner selves, where answers are. We can start to deal with this huge healthcare crisis that we have, because people will start to feel more empowered to take care of themselves. So going back to your question, I like working in businesses because I can get a large group of people and they can learn through mindfulness, through movement, through breath work, and through meditation what they need. And they can start healing themselves that way. And then this is just going to trickle down. This is things they can teach to their spouse, to their children. And that's what we need. People need to focus on their own healing. Not once they get sick, but preventative methods, how they can take care of their own emotions, their own suffering.
So how do you deal with someone that says, okay, great, I understand healthcare costs are going up. I'm a business person. I see that. But what you're describing to me is this airy-fairy kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. What good is that going to do me? How's that going to impact my bottom line?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I get that running a business.
I imagine you get it all the time, right?
I get it often. And so I'll go to the research. So meditation is proven to reduce stress, to increase focus, to increase concentration, to reduce anxiety, and to reduce emotional reactivity. So let's say you have a group of customer service representatives. They're on the phone with clients all day. They're on the phone with unhappy clients. And that can be really stressful. But your customer service folks have no skills to manage their stress. And so towards the end of the day, this starts wearing on them, and they're not as patient with the clients on the other line. They're short. That's going to affect your bottom line. But if you teach these folks skills to manage their own stress, to take a deep breath so that they know no matter what's going on the external, no matter what these upset clients are saying, you have control of how you show up. Now, all of a sudden, you have a more confident customer service representative, a less stressful customer service representative. Your clients will feel that. They'll get the best of that. They're more likely to stay with you, and that's going to affect your bottom line. Also, it's been shown that companies that do things like meditation and mindfulness, they actually have less trips to the emergency room for their employees, less sick days. So that's going to directly affect the bottom line with insurance costs. So there's a lot of research that will back up everything I'm saying that I show to folks. Then I also have my own recommendations from companies that I've worked with that have shown their employees have increased their mindfulness skills, decreased their stress, to show that the program that I've put together does make a difference to people's stress levels.
Can you explain a little bit how your program works if I was interested?
Yes. So I have a 10-week mindfulness or meditation program, and some folks will combine and customize. And so I'll go in for, and a lot of people will repeat these 10-week programs, but at a minimum, we do 10 weeks, an hour each week, and each week we learn a new mindfulness skill, such as breath work, a body scan, mindful movement, meditation. We work within partners, within small groups. We have group discussions. So after we practice and experience this new technique, we talk about where would we use this in the office. We talk about where we would use this in the home. And then we get to put this to practice all week until we meet the following week. So people are not only learning new skills, but they're learning how to apply them to their everyday lives. And so at the beginning of our 10-week session, we do a survey to see where people's kind of stress levels, tension, anxiety levels are, emotional reactivity levels are. And then we measure that against the last session 10 weeks later to notice if there's improvement in those areas. And there are.
So I'll play the business person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an hour out of the week. They're not working towards the business. How do you respond to that?
Because meditation and mindfulness makes somebody more focused. Yes, let's say you as Mr. Business Owner says, that doesn't make any sense, I'm losing an hour. Well, you have two choices. If your person's tired and doesn't have any choices except maybe chocolate and coffee to perk themselves up, they're going to crash and not be nearly as productive for the last 3 hours of work, let's say. But if they learn natural ways with mindfulness and meditation to boost their energy, and this 1 hour of class, let's say it's at 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., makes 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. more productive, they get more work done, they're more focused, you've just made money in the amount of focus and productivity you've gained. And that can be measured. You can measure the quality of somebody's work like that.
Do you find the business world changing, embracing this more, or is there still a lot of resistance?
Great question. I still find some resistance. However, I am so grateful and thankful that mindfulness and meditation is a trend that I feel is here to stay, because there's been so much research that people cannot deny the research anymore, that business owners that are in the know, that know they need new solutions, are totally embracing this. And then when they hear their employees making connections, truly gaining more energy after a session, they know they've made the right decision.
Is it online, or do you physically go there?
The future goal is online. Thank you, Rich. But right now, I physically go and conduct these sessions around Maricopa County.
I'm doing an online thing too, putting it together, but I think there's still something about being person to person. You know, you can look at it, whether it's energy or whatever your spirituality is, but there's still something about being person to person thing. But, you know, the world is changing so quickly. It's all online. We live through our phones, basically.
I know.
There's someone out there that may hear this that's a mini you, and perhaps they're starting to feel like, you know, this life I'm living, it's not working for me. What parting words would you have to say to them here?
I would just tell them to get to know themselves and don't push it, don't rush it. And you can get to know yourself in so many different ways. You can sit in stillness, observe your thoughts. You can journal, you can write. If you want to chat it out with a really trusted friend, but just get to know yourself and get to know what your soul really yearns for, what would nourish you, and just start to take small steps. You know, for a while I tried to rush it, but there's no rush. Everything will happen in its own time, and everything will happen as it should. So get to know yourself. Don't rush that process. It's a beautiful process. And just enjoy that journey of self-exploration.
What's the future for Shawn and Breathe and Work?
Thank you, Rich. So really any capacity that I could share the teachings of meditation and mindfulness, whether that be speaking, whether it be online teaching, teaching in person, teaching in colleges. I just want to spread the teachings that I've learned from meditation. I love to be a learner. I'm in my 300-hour yoga training program right now with Jen Chiarelli. I'm getting my master's in health promotion. So I will continue to learn for my entire life, and I'll continue to teach what I'm learning to help just serve and help people explore and grow and just find some inner joy with themselves.
Sounds like you're still pretty busy.
Yes.
What's the difference between busy then and busy now?
Busy now is I'm kinder to myself, and I spend time every single day. It's non-negotiable in meditation. I enjoy the moment. So before I was just rushing to get to the next thing. Now I truly have to say I enjoy the moments of my life. And that's what's different. So I don't feel busy anymore. Before I felt like I was overloaded and overwhelmed. Yes, I have so many amazing things going on, but I don't feel busy. I feel like my plate is beautifully full, but I feel like I have enough time for everything I'm supposed to be doing. And I feel like if I'm just focusing on what is here in the moment, then it will all get done how it's supposed to. But there's no rush, and it's not as much push.
Well, thank you again for joining us and telling us your hero's journey. It was very inspiring to me. I'm very inspired as I sit here with you.
No, thank you, Rich. It was a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for listening. And please leave any comments or suggestions. We're always looking for ways to improve our show and make it the best show it can possibly be. Visit mindfulaccord.com, where you can find additional episodes and you can follow our blog. We give some helpful information on mindfulness, meditation, and just ways to manage our everyday stressful lives. And most importantly, if you know of a friend or a family member that would benefit from this story, please share it with them. Until next time, I'm Rich Decker.